Given the fact that I just started this video by saying given the fact, that makes me a complete and utter moron.
Yes, I suppose you are right.
But other than that, lately, while watching the most recent reveals from the summer of 2020, I started to notice a re-emerging trend that is of a bygone era. Well, it hasn't gone anywhere, it just evolved, but I just really wanted to say bygone era. So where were we? Ah yes, I was rambling about the cultural movement so forgotten, so obliterated in recent years by the rise in popularity of the mobile gaming industry together with a complex and deeply rooted philosophical narrative genre of the Battle Royale. I'm talking, of course, about the classic co-op games that have all but disappeared. And with no narrative correlation whatsoever to what I've just said, I was watching the DC Geek Fest a couple of weeks back where they showed a trailer with no gameplay. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, releasing a no gameplay trailer of a media product that is intended for you and me to actively take part in it is like listening to a sound-only trailer for the Avengers or whatever.
Who the hell are you guys?
Anyway, the other game announced during the event was Gotham Knights, where they did show some gameplay, thank God, especially because it had Deadpool in it. Now really, don't you guys think he looks too much like Deadpool? Haven't people complained already, or am I just an idiot? Your honest answer down below. So then, they announced that the game was co-op.
An important goal for Gotham Knights was that players can play all of the game, either solo or in two-player co-op.
Turns out the Suicide Squad too long of a title is co-op as well.
All of a sudden it hit me, I realized what the problem is.
There's already another game that pertains to the same style out there. The video game cash grab of one of the biggest nerd franchises that ever existed. And so, with my infinite intellect, I began connecting the dots and I noticed a shift in the gaming orbit. In other words, it appears that more and more co-op games are starting to emerge. But now, before we get into what that could mean for us, it's time to dig deep and reminisce about the co-op games of long ago when we were still in school and life didn't suck nearly as much. So, according to people that actually did proper research about this stuff, the arcade machines were the first to adopt this type of cooperative gameplay. Thus, Atari's 1978 Fire Truck is believed to be the first arcade game to feature cooperative gameplay. Apparently, Player 1 drove the actual truck, while Player 2 was kind of controlling the trailer so it wouldn't spin around. All the while, no actual fire extinguishing was going on. Which reminds me of that South Park episode. Remember when they pretended there were firemen in kindergarten and their teacher caught on fire and they were like, "Put it out! Put it out!" Funny ass scene, my god, South Park is amazing. But now, putting my ADHD aside, another game was Wizard of War, with an O, that had single player, a competitive two-player mode, and the obvious two-player co-op. Joust had co-op as well, being a weird combination of Flappy Bird and the underwater levels from Super Mario Bros. But the interesting thing about Joust is that you would get extra points for playing co-op so as to incentivize you to actually play with another person. Then came some other titles that supported more players, like Gauntlet from 1985 with up to 4 people at the same time. Quartet came after that and honestly looked kinda rad for a game made in 1986. Anywho, more and more games started to have this option, like the awesome beat-em-up genre that, for me at least, looked like they were specifically designed for more than one player at a time. A bit after that, in 1998, there was one game in particular that was developed with co-op in mind for the arcade machines. Time Crisis 2, that was marketed and launched as the first in the series to be a two-player on-rails shooter where you could actually adopt cooperative strategies like covering fire for each other. But now let's skip ahead from the arcade machines to the console games. And I'm talking way before NES, I'm talking really old school. At first, there weren't that many games that featured this kind of gameplay because of the technical limitations of the time, of course. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it struck me as funny that some of the home consoles had controller ports for more than one player, but when push came to shove, the two-player gameplay was nothing more than the single player, but player 2 had the controller. As time moved on, game ports from the arcade machines began to come alive on the home consoles as well, particularly on the NES, of course. Games like Double Dragon 2 or 3, for example. Then, original franchises like Streets of Rage and River City Ransom were among the first titles that were not ported anymore but developed specifically for the home consoles. Another huge milestone was the run-and-gun genre that was emerging in the late 80s, like the Contra titles, for example, that are among the most, if not the most recognizable co-op games ever to be created since the invention of sex. Now come to think about it, is sex co-op or is it competitive? Is a threesome co-op or is that a 2v1 PvP? I leave that for you to decide in the comments below. Moving on, Electronic Arts were among the first to make co-op sports titles like Madden NFL in 1990 and NHL Hockey in 1991. Now, there's one title in particular that was known for having a great multiplayer experience, and it was called Secret of Mana, or Mana, whatever. That was because it let a second or third player join the game on the fly, as opposed to having to restart the game or start a new game entirely. Next up, Final Fantasy VI had some form of alternative co-oping, as the second player could take control of half of the characters from the party. Baldur's Gate Alliance was a Diablo clone practically for consoles that could have been played by two humans simultaneously. Now, the PS1 might have had ports for two controllers, and there were a bunch of games out there playable like that at the time, but it wasn't until the Nintendo 64 came out with all of its 4 glory holes that consoles pretty much copied that design and made it into the standard. Like the Dreamcast, Nintendo GameCube, Xbox, and from there on out, well, you know the rest. But enough of the arcades and the home consoles, cause it's time for everyone's favorite master race, the PC. Anyway, in 1993, out of all games, Doom was in fact a 4-player co-op game. And how might that be, I hear you youngsters from today asking? Well, simple. Back then, we had things called wires, and we used to plug them from one computer to another or through a router and form a network connection named LAN. We used to call it a LAN party, geek fest, or a sausage fest. Basically, a bunch of virgins put together that were having the time of their lives. Rumor has it that Russians still play on the very same PCs, only now they switched to Dota 2. And Dota players from Europe know exactly what I mean.
Fucking enemies! Блять, этот не плой ебаный, сука, русский! Ah, shit! Shit! Fucking...
But that's for another video. And still talking about games from id Software, from there on out, they continued the co-op trend with Doom 2, Quake, and Quake 2. However, most FPS games from that era didn't feature co-op because they were designed as a single-player experience through and through. And it was kinda after the mid-2000s when co-op games really started to shine. At least for me in any case, because back then during my high school years, I absolutely loved Friday nights when I used to have a friend over and play split-screen games all night long. Also bear in mind that back then in Romania where I'm from, for a kid to have a console like PS2, PS3 or Xbox 360, holy crap man, that was considered mega luxury. Because first of all, they were really expensive here, and second of all, well, parents. And because my dear old dad thought gaming was only for severely mentally challenged people, when I asked if they would buy me one, the conversation went something like this.
As long as you live under my house, you will follow my rules.
I wish I was never born!
Ah, we finally agree on something.
So any which way, back then I still managed to save up some money from birthdays and Christmases, selling things here or there, and I finally got me one of those console majiggers and kept doing so throughout the years. Thus, me and my friends were totally amazed at this foreign technology that opened portals to other worlds where we got lost for hours on end, playing couch co-op games like Gears of War that was honestly the bee's knees back in the day. Resistance Fall of Men was one of my favorite titles and another fun as hell experience in 2 players. I think I finished that game at least twice with every friend that came over. Oh, Trine was another great one and we had tons of fun playing it. Kane and Lynch Deadman? Nuff said. The game didn't hit the top of the sale charts or whatever, but boy did it have character. Army of Two was fantastic and it was just co-op bliss back then. We were kids and we played it for the novelty of it and for how much fun we had. We didn't care for nitpicking the gameplay, mission variety, or whatever fancy words game reviewers use nowadays. Because in Army of Two, you could have used the freaking car door as a shield. What more could you have wanted as a kid from a co-op game? So there were just tons and tons of games during and after the late 2000s to play split screen, and that's why that period from my life stayed with me and will forever do so, to be honest, because I had all of these amazing experiences that now I see them as being a bit harder to have because of the monopoly online co-op has over couch co-op in some cases. As a side note, I know Nintendo has the cure, so to speak, but even Mario and Smash Bros get old at some point. And by saying that most games these days have online co-op rather than local co-op isn't necessarily a bad thing, I consider it a normal evolution of things. I mean, MOBAs wouldn't be what they are if you managed to cram 5 players on one screen. Or World of Warcraft, my favorite PC game of all time, same thing. You can't fit 5 people for a dungeon or 25 players for a raid on one screen that barely holds enough space for one single character's spells and abilities. And the same goes for Fortnite, PUBG, and Minecraft. My point is that co-op games have come a long way since the 80s arcade machines, and I think we have nothing but to benefit from it. I, for one, am all in for whatever the future holds, because what else am I gonna do? Post some douchey, self-important comment somewhere no one is gonna ever read and think my meek opinion matters? Of course not. Oh, also, I gotta give a shout out to the co-op from the Souls games, which without, I could have never ever finished them. My theory is that the math is against you in those games, meaning that they're actually meant just for co-op. That's why single player is so damn hard. But I'll save my opinions about the Soulsborns for another video. The good news is that couch co-op games aren't completely dead, they still live on, and I think they will continue to thrive as long as 2D gaming will not cease to exist. Nothing beats an awesome evening with a friend, or if you're truly lucky with your significant other, a couple of drinks, a pizza, and just playing something together till you call it a night at 3 AM. So now, coming back to what triggered me in the first place to make this video, is the fact that with the release of games like The Avengers, Suicide Squad, Gotham Knights, Minecraft Dungeons, Watch Dogs Legion with its 4-player co-op mode, the upcoming Ghost of Tsushima 4-player co-op mode, Baldur's Gate 3, Outriders, and God knows what else, the age of co-op has never been so popular as now through online multiplayer. But my question for you is this, so please leave your opinion in the comment section below. What is your favorite co-op game, and which type of cooperative gameplay makes for a better experience? Having a couple of brewskis with a good buddy sitting on the couch, or everyone safe and sound in their own little homes like a couple of teen princesses? Well, that was kinda it. I wanted to say my piece about the co-op games, and thanks for watching till the very end. And if you like what we do and want to support the both of us at Late to the Party Video Games to grow this channel and gather more community members, YouTube really likes comments and hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks again, and see you next time. God bless co-op games, and stay safe.